Marriage is a showstopper in women's life is what the common practice of cultures all around the world. Many cultures all around the world are there, but the common practice is she need to give up all her freedom, not all of the freedom, partially. Now it is partial, but previously it was about giving up all her freedom to be in the kitchen, working for their uh, home people as an unpaid servant. So these are all the common things. And if we compare women's life after marriage to the to the women after marriage in ancient Egypt. Does the women in ancient Egypt also had gone through the same problem, or did they had any sort of rights owned by them that at that time itself they had those sort of rights which could be used as an example to the modern women also, because still some women are going through these common problems where still feminists are fighting for women's rights all over the world. In this video, we are going to see the common marriage practices that happened in ancient Rome, where how the women rights were given to ancient women and what all the status of them in the home. Did they only served as an unpaid servant in the home, or did they had some special rights which were not neglected for all the other women all over the world after that? We can take them as an example for the modern women now. These are all the things that we'll discuss in this video. So let's get into the video. First one, we will discuss about status of women in ancient Rome. Status of women, if you say, they worked in farms and fields as men, as hard as men, and they worked as juries, priests. They handle their own business. Okay, but all in the form not led to the public role, but they led all these in form of private role. They obviously run all those businesses, acted as a jury, bought lawsuits, but without their name being bought outside in the public life. So that's the one thing that is a drawback in the ancient women's life. Apart from that, the rights that were given to women at those time was they can inherit their paternal and uh, maternal businesses and their monetary actions, everything they can inherit from them without any, they say that still it is in practice in some sort of villages now that as a woman we can only give her gold in her marriage, and after that she can't come ask her rights in our property. So it was followed during old ages also, but during ancient Rome it was not like that. If a couple is going to have a male and a female child, they both can inherit the property of the house of the couple equally. So that's the rights that were followed during the ancient Egypt time itself. And apart from that, they were given the title as Nebertper. Nebertper is nothing but lady of the house, mistress of the house, ruler of the house. Of course, they had been given the traditional role of housewives, but they were treated with utmost respect, as this is one of the unpaid labors. They treated her with utmost respect because she is the ruler of the house. This is the condition and status of women in the ancient Egypt, where the girls in ancient Egypt were considered for marriage once they attained the age of 12 to 14. That is, once they attained their puberty, they were considered for marriage. And for boys, it is the age of 20, because they need to become financially independent. They need to take care of their needs, and the women that they are going to marry their needs also, if they are going to be the housemaid. So the household goals, not housemaid. So this is the thing that is followed in the ancient Egypt, where they in upper class, that is kings and queens life, they tried, the kings married their own sisters in some instances to the safeguard the blood relations and properties. And for some upper class wealthy peoples, they the boys were allowed to marry the maid's daughter, and the daughters were allowed to marry her own love interest. only if she is from the upper class. But that is not followed in the lower class, whereas the lower class people were simply followed marriage between their relations to safeguard their, of course they need to safeguard their property and to safeguard their customs. They followed this common practices, and there is a common saying that if anyone, if you are going to marry, even if you are going to marry the love of your life, there is a common saying that, or else even if you are going to marry in an arranged marriage, if you want wisdom, you need to love your wife, and you don't order your wife. Just observe her silently. You can analyze her skills by just observing silently. And what they said is, if you find that out that her skills are not matching your expectations, still you can give your marriage a chance instead of going to divorce. So that's how they consider marriage as such an essential and a holy one, not only for snubbing of the women's rights, but because of as a society they endured marriage and respected women in marriage mostly. Ancient Egypt marriage ceremony. If you take marriage ceremony of ancient Egypt people, they were not considering the special lavish money spent on great weddings and all. They were not interested in those. There were no ceremonies conducted. Simply the men who's going to marry the woman, they'll gift her, or else they'll provide some sort of money to her to marry her. The dowry from man to the women is a common practice in that ancient Egypt. And apart from that, after marriage, there were tomb paintings stating that the men and women eat together, dance together, work together if they were in the same profession. And all they did was to run their marriage as a successful one. They were working together as a whole, not as you and me. And apart from that, even if man feels that the marriage is not serving him any good, he is not liking that women that he married after marriage, he can not be happy. But he can still consider how she is managing the household goes, how well mannered she is raising his children. So she should be considered for all her responsibilities as a whole. Even if he is unhappy, he should give his marriage a chance. And even if after such chances there were no there were no understanding between the couples were there, they can consider for divorce at that time. And most of the ancient Egypt families after marriage, they followed nuclear family principle, which was famous nowadays, but they followed that during that time itself. Uh, And if the man is not happy with the woman, if he leaves her, if he leaves his wife in difficult situation, he need to give her 100 silvers. And if he is going to leave his wife for some another woman, he need to give 150 silver, something like that. So that is what the common practice that they followed during the marriage ceremony up to the divorce things if they were not happy. And everything was registered in a contract basis from the date of marriage to the date of divorce. Whereas when the woman is marrying a particular man, she can carry her own property during that initial part of marriage into her own house from her parents to his husband's house. But all the property that she had bought to the new house with her husband during the marriage was considered as hers during the part of the divorce. She can carry all the part of her own property at the time of divorce to her own house, to the parents house. So that is a most notable thing. Now we can see some sort of news saying that in-laws and husbands snatched all the properties of the women that she had bought from her parents to the new you know newlyweds house. So these are the things that we can follow during this time, that how they can follow at that time. Why can't we give women now living in this era that much rights, right? Women's rights, there is wives' rights and fidelity. If you take ancient Egypt people, how they consider fidelity as one of the important thing the marriage can hold and marriage can sustain, and how the wife rights plays an important role in ancient Egypt. This is the most important topics that they practiced during those times. Whereas if the husband abuse his wife physically, if there are marks, or else if she can't sustain those prolonged form of abuse, she can complain it to the judge, and the judge can give her husband at most 100 strokes because of beating his wife unwantedly, as they didn't say anything like you should beat your wife to make her obey your orders. There was no saying in ancient Egypt, and that is the most important thing that many such people in today's world need to follow, because there is no such thing that is uh, allowed to allowed to men to beat women only because she is inferior to you. There is no such thing as inferior superior in the ancient Egypt and all. They simply followed, if the man beats his wife, he will be given 100 strokes if it is compliant to the local jury or else the jury at that place itself. And the second one is, if the man in that is the husband commits adultery, that is if the man cheats his wife, at most he need to give his all estates property to his wife, and the wife can divorce his husband. Alongside, the women can take one third of the husband's property with her if he commits adultery, that is cheating. They they call cheating as one form of sin. So that is one of the unavoidable thing that they followed during that time. And the third one is, if the women commits adultery, what if the women commits adultery? So yeah, because ancient Egypt considered man and women as an equal partner, and if both commits adultery, of course divorce will be granted to both. So yes, of course the women commits adultery, uh, the man can divorce her, but the divorce that is happening by the wife's will has more impact on husband. That is, the husband need to give more of his property at that time. That's why the divorce practices was not followed during among the people of lower income classes. Whereas there were stories that were famous during the ancient Egypt, saying that the tale of unfaithful women, the tale of two brothers, stating that there are two brothers lived in that ancient Egypt, and the first brother married one woman, whereas the wife of the first brother was trying to seduce the second brother. But when her husband finds that out, that his wife is making out with his brother, he initially was angry with his brother, but his brother stated all those, and they found out that the woman was the original culprit here. The woman cheated his husband. Obviously, the woman was killed, and there was a story of Osiris and Iris, that is husband and wife. Osiris was killed by his brother Set, where the Set was having illegal affair with his brother's wife, and this was the infidelity caused from the men's side. Obviously, there were stories that were stating that infidelity from women and infidelity from men both will not be considered uh, as a legal practice, and the legal actions will be taken with both genders without any partiality. So that is one of the greatest impact that they had on the fidelity. So that is one of the greatest thing that we can take into account in today's marriages. Whereas both, if they commit sin, not going to be the gender specific, it is gender neutral. We need to punish the person, whether women or men, if they commit cheating as an adultery one. Obviously, the one who committed sin will be punished legally. That is the important lesson that we can take away from the ancient people's culture. So see you in next video. That's all. Thank you. Bye.